Most people spend their entire lives trying to figure out where exactly they belong on the invisible ladder of society. Are they supposed to lead? Should they follow? Or maybe just blend into the middle where it feels safe? They study how others behave, mirror the vibe of the room, and hope that eventually they'll stumble into their rightful place, whether it's at work, in friendships, or in dating. But what happens if you've always felt like none of those roles truly fit you? What if the way you naturally approach problems, relationships, and life as a whole doesn't line up with what most people seem to expect? That doesn't mean you're broken or strange. In fact, it might simply mean you're wired differently than the majority of people around you. This is the quiet reality of Sigma males. Many of them don't even realize they fall into that category, mainly because they aren't consciously trying to be anything specific. They're just existing authentically in a world that insists on labeling people, forcing them into neat little boxes that rarely capture the full truth. Their thoughts, behaviors, and choices often look unusual from the outside, but from their own perspective, they're simply living the way that feels natural. The qualities that set Sigmas apart aren't about being better or worse than anyone else. They're just different. And depending on how you view them, those differences can be frustrating challenges or powerful strengths. Quick question before we move on. Where are you watching this from right now, and what time is it for you? Think about it, because sometimes the moment you're drawn to content like this reveals more about your own path than you might realize. Stick with me till the end, because these 7 natural behaviors could finally explain why you've always walked differently than the crowd. Number 1. You get uneasy when someone compliments you too soon. Think about this. Have you ever met someone who, within minutes of knowing you, starts telling you how amazing, talented, or special you are, and instead of feeling flattered, something in you tightens with suspicion? While most people crave compliments and happily soak up praise, Sigma males experience the opposite reaction. For them, compliments that come too early feel less like appreciation and more like a red flag. Their minds automatically start running credibility checks. They ask themselves, how could this person possibly know enough about me already to make such a claim? If the praise arrives before the person has spent real time observing who they are or what they do, it feels hollow, like manipulation or surface-level flattery rather than genuine acknowledgement. This reaction isn't rooted in insecurity. It's not that Sigmas doubt their own worth. Instead, it comes from their analytical mindset. They understand that authentic appreciation requires time, attention, and proof. Real recognition happens only after someone has actually witnessed their work, their character, or their consistency. So, while empty flattery makes them suspicious, true compliments, ones based on lived experience and observation, land deeply. That's when they can accept praise with humility and grace. But when recognition feels unearned, their brain flags it as unreliable data. And instead of drawing them closer, it often makes them more guarded. Number 2, you almost never fantasize about fame, but you often dream of disappearing. The majority of people daydream about recognition. They imagine being celebrated, admired, or even famous, having their name on everyone's lips and their achievements broadcast for the world to see. But for many Sigma males, that kind of fantasy feels like a nightmare. To them, fame equals exposure. It means constant scrutiny, endless judgment, and the crushing weight of carrying other people's opinions about every decision they make. Rather than offering freedom, it feels like a cage made out of other people's expectations. Instead, their daydreams take a very different form. Rather than imagining themselves under a spotlight, they imagine quietly stepping away from all of it. They picture disappearing from obligations, expectations, and noise, living life entirely on their own terms. For some, it's a vision of retreating to a remote cabin in the mountains. For others, it's traveling to a place where no one knows their name, or moving through the world without leaving any digital footprints. To a Sigma, the fantasy isn't about being seen, it's about being free. Free to move, free to think, free to live without the weight of constant eyes watching over them. The fantasy of disappearing doesn't appeal to you because you're running away from life or dodging responsibility. It's not about escape in the shallow sense. It's about craving the highest form of freedom. The ability to live without pressure, without performance, and without the constant weight of other people's expectations. In that vision, your time, your energy, and your decisions belong entirely to you, free from the need to consider how each move might ripple into your reputation, relationships, or status. That simple dream highlights just how differently Sigma males are wired compared to the crowd. Where the majority see fame as the ultimate proof of worth, a golden crown of validation, you see nothing but a cage. Fame may look glamorous, but to you it strips away authenticity. The fantasy of disappearing isn't a retreat from problems. It's the desire to access a kind of autonomy that feels almost impossible in today's hyper-connected world, where every choice is scrutinized and every success ties you deeper into obligations you never asked for. Number 3. You can't fake enthusiasm without it draining the life out of you. Most people can slap on a smile, nod in the right places, and pretend to be interested in things they don't care about. They'll clap at presentations, laugh politely at dull small talk, or act excited for social plans they secretly dread. To them, this kind of surface-level performance is just the lubricant of social life. It's normal, even necessary. But for a Sigma male, pretending to care feels like hauling emotional bricks uphill. Every forced smile feels heavy. Every fake "wow, that's amazing" leaves you more drained than before. You can absolutely be polite when the situation calls for it, but the act of manufacturing enthusiasm for something that doesn't spark your interest costs you far more energy than it does for others. Why? Because your brain doesn't separate real passion from false passion. When you fake excitement, it feels like you're pushing against your own wiring instead of moving with it. Most people seem to have a switch they can flip for social performance. You don't. And if you do, flipping it feels like burning fuel on empty. That's why you thrive in spaces where your curiosity is genuine, where your involvement is real, because that's when your energy multiplies instead of evaporating. Number 4. You'd rather be misunderstood than waste energy explaining yourself. For the average person, being misunderstood is deeply uncomfortable. They feel an almost automatic urge to explain themselves, to clarify their intentions, justify their choices, and make sure others get what they meant. They'll bend over backwards trying to manage perceptions, investing hours into defending their perspective, because the idea of being misread feels unbearable. Sigma males, however, play this game differently. For you, the mental cost of explaining is often higher than the discomfort of being misunderstood. You've already learned the hard truth. People will make their own judgments no matter how much evidence or explanation you give them. And spending endless energy trying to change their minds rarely gives you any return. It's not that you don't care about truth or clarity. It's that the chase for validation through explanation feels empty. You'd rather conserve your energy for the battles that actually matter than drain yourself trying to fix misconceptions in the minds of people who probably wouldn't understand the explanation anyway. That's the paradox. While others wear themselves out trying to manage their image, you've found peace in simply letting people think what they want. Misunderstandings stop being chains and turn into background noise. And the quiet freedom that comes from not having to constantly justify yourself outweighs the sting of someone occasionally getting you wrong. Number 5, you're terrible at asking for help, but exceptional at solving problems on your own. For you, there's something strangely uncomfortable about the entire process of asking for help. It's not just about pride. It's the friction of having to explain your situation, wait on someone else's timeline, and then depend on their knowledge or generosity to move forward. That dependence doesn't feel natural. It feels like a loss of rhythm, like surrendering control over your own momentum. Because of this, Sigmas tend to rely heavily on themselves. Instead of reaching outward, you instinctively turn inward. You'd rather dig through the problem piece by piece, figure it out from scratch, or take the long way around than lean too heavily on someone else's shoulders. And in the process, you often end up building a kind of resilience and competence that others, who depend more on constant support, rarely develop. Even in situations where asking for help would clearly save time, you often find yourself choosing the longer, more demanding route of figuring things out on your own. For Sigma males, this isn't usually about pride, arrogance, or the belief that they're somehow above others. It's more practical than that. Bringing someone else into the process often creates extra layers of complication that feel heavier than the original problem itself. You have to stop, explain the entire situation in detail, hope they actually understand your perspective, then wait around for their availability and adjust to their pace. On top of that, you're expected to blend your way of thinking with theirs, which can leave you feeling more frustrated and drained than if you had just tackled the challenge solo. That's why, by default, Sigmas lean into independence. Over time, this habit has shaped a powerful skill set. You naturally become sharper at breaking problems down into smaller parts, at approaching obstacles with creativity, and at finding ways to push through without leaning on anyone else to carry the weight. The independent Sigma mindset isn't about being stubborn. It's about efficiency. Your brain operates at its peak when it's free to process, explore, and resolve things without needing to bend around another person's methods or pace. For you, it feels far more rewarding to wrestle with a challenge alone, investing extra time if necessary, and arrive at a solution that makes perfect sense in your own logic, than to take shortcuts that risk entangling you in confusion, obligation, or dependence. In the long run, that self-reliant approach doesn't just solve problems, it strengthens you. Number 6. Sometimes you forget to smile. Not because you're sad, but because you're focused. It's a common scene. You're deeply absorbed in thought, running through ideas in your head, or quietly untangling a problem, and suddenly someone interrupts with, "Are you okay?" You look upset. In reality, you weren't upset at all. You were just lost in focus. Most people keep up a certain level of social face, maintaining pleasant expressions even when they're doing nothing important. But Sigma males often lack this automatic filter. When your brain is engaged, your face slips into neutral, expressionless, unreadable. To outsiders, it can come across as serious, intimidating, or unfriendly. But the truth is, you're simply somewhere else mentally. This creates awkward moments where people misread your silence as negativity, leaving you with two options. Either explain you're fine, or force yourself to wear a more approachable expression while you're thinking. But that's like running two apps at once, one to process your thoughts, and another just to manage appearances. And the second one often drains energy from the first, pulling you out of the zone. For Sigma males, it isn't about wanting to appear unapproachable. It's just that when you're deeply invested in your inner world, worrying about how your face is being interpreted feels like unnecessary noise. And in a society where everyone's so used to constant performance, that difference stands out. Number 7. You learn best by reverse engineering, not by blindly following instructions. The majority of people are satisfied with step-by-step instructions. They'll follow the manual, copy the rules, and accept that if it works, that's all they need to know. But you? That's never been enough. Sigma males are wired to dig deeper. You don't just want the how, you need the why. Whether it's a piece of technology, a social dynamic, or even another person's behavior, your instinct is to take it apart, break it down, and uncover the hidden framework behind it. Manuals and instructions feel flat to you unless they connect to a bigger picture. Context is everything. Once you see the moving parts and how they fit together, not only does the process finally make sense, you also gain the ability to improve it, tweak it, or even reinvent it. This isn't about rebellion, ego, or thinking your way is somehow superior. It's deeper than that. It's simply how your mind naturally works. Reverse engineering doesn't just help you learn, it gives you ownership over the knowledge. You're not blindly memorizing steps like most people. You're building a mental blueprint, a map that lets you adapt when the rules don't make sense, when the system cracks, or when life throws you into uncharted territory. And here's the real edge. In a world where the majority are comfortable following directions without ever asking why, the Sigma mindset gives you rare freedom. You're not just a cog in the machine, you're the one capable of redesigning the machine itself. That combination of curiosity and independence isn't just different. It's powerful. It's what makes the Sigma male untouchable in situations where others would fall apart. So if you've ever felt like your way of thinking doesn't fit the mold, don't dismiss it. That's your strength. That's your advantage. If this resonates, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Epic Persona. This is where we uncover the rare psychology of men who move differently, and why the world can't ignore them. Tell me, do you think real intelligence comes from memorizing rules, or from knowing how to break and rebuild them?